Hey there, I'm Adrienne Stevenson, and today we're going to do a webinar on space planning and room types. So we're going to cover some topics like doing bubble diagrams to lay out your floor spaces, using the space planning assistant within Chief Architect, and also understanding how room types and room defaults work. So we'll cover those areas. We'll also talk a little bit about living area and how that's calculated. And we'll finalize with a split level house. So you can actually download the project files that I use in this demonstration from our post on Chief Talk. So Carrie's going to share a link to that in the chat. If you're interested in downloading it now or later, you're welcome to do that. And then we're going to just point out a couple new features that will be coming in X13, just a handful of those that I'll mention. I do have coworkers on the broadcast with me, so they're going to be available to answer any of the questions that you type in on your control panel, so feel free to do that throughout the whole presentation. It will last about 30 minutes, and then after that we'll be able to take some live question and answer. So you have a little raise hand icon in your control panel. If you want to ask a question, Carrie can call on you and we'll just have you unmute your mic and we can see if we can get those answered for you. When it's all said and done, this session will have been recorded and we'll send out an email to you. So we'll give you a link so you can rewatch it, and we'll also send a survey. So we would really like it if you could give us your feedback and let us know what we can do better for these webinars or if they're still valuable for you. With that, I think we're ready to get started. Let's do some space planning. There are really a lot of different ways that you can think about space planning when you're using Chief Architect. Let's start with this example that Scott uses. He shared this plan with me that contains a whole bunch of polylines that represent some of the different room sizes and the typical rooms that he would use in one of his designs. These are literally just polylines. You can see down here in the status bar that it says it's a polyline solid. And if we open up the specification for it, you can see some of the things he's done. We start on the line style tab here, and he's created a custom layer that's called space planning boxes. So that's an easy way for him to manage whether or not these objects display in any of his designs. He's also turned on show length, and all that does is turn on this little indicator on the edge of these polylines that show the actual length. So those are dynamic, and anytime that you resize these polylines, it will update that dimension to represent your changes. He also has put a fill style in here, and it's partially transparent, so when you end up overlapping the boxes, you can kind of see where everything lands. And then the last thing he's kind of done to make these unique is he's put a custom label into the polyline box. So when you choose specify label, this text is manually entered, so you would just literally type in the name of the room as you'd want it to appear in your bubble diagram. And then what he's done is used a macro. So whenever you see the % signs here, it means that a macro is being referenced. And the program will report back the information specific to that macro. So in this case, that represents this number. It looks like it's 6,670. That's the rounded square footage area of that polyline. So that's all this is. You can do those things to any type of a polyline and use them for any number of purposes within Chief. What I would do is probably shift select the rooms that I know I want to think about first, and then I would copy those off to the side. So I'm just going to hit copy. I'll zoom out a little bit, and then I'm going to paste those over to the side here. So now I have the boxes that I can start arranging however I want the flow of my house to work. And that's simply by selecting them, and you can grab this move handle, hold down your control key to get freeform movement, and then you can just start stacking them around wherever you'd like. In this type of a design, you could overlay these and you can edit the box. So if you know that it needs to suit a specific size, you can resize that, and you have these temporary dimensions so you can type in an actual value. And then the snapping tools also work with this. So if I wanted to use point-to-point move to kind of align those perfectly, I could do that. So this is just kind of a free-form way of looking at your design. You know, you can kind of bump these around however you'd like. I'm just randomly placing them. And then the process that you would end up using to turn this 2D visualization into your 3D house is start tracing these CAD lines with your wall tool. So that's pretty convenient because your walls will snap to CAD. If I use my wall tool and I just hover over the corner, you'll see that red handle that's telling me it's snapping, and then you can just click and drag and it's going to just snap the main layer of that wall assembly to the edge of this line. So if you've ever watched a beginner or overview demo of Chief Architect, we almost always will start the conversation with the best way to start your plan in the program is to kind of sketch the outside of your envelope. And that's exactly what we've done here. So I've just used the aid of these polyline solids to give me snappable points that I can draw along. And then of course you just move along and fill in the spaces with your walls or room dividers or whatever to get this laid out. So that's one way to do space planning using a manual bubble diagram in Chief Architect. We also offer some space planning tools. You'll find those under the Tools menu, under Space Planning, and then there's a whole option here. If you're going to spend any amount of time using these planning bubbles and doing the space planning process, you can always switch into this configuration that's built into Chief Architect. It's called the Space Planning configuration. When you click this button or any of these buttons, you'll notice that your toolbars totally change. So this bottom row, you've got a whole different set of tools. Sometimes people will get into this state and not realize they've clicked the button, so I just recommend that you kind of are cognizant of these, and your architectural mode is your standard mode. We also offer a few other modes here. If you find you're missing tools, look there. Anyway, this is a set of toolbars that allow you to also do some bubble diagram layouts. Those are these individual buttons here on the toolbar, so you can click on any of them. They represent a room that has kind of been configured to a relatively standard size. And this is a polyline that can be dragged around, similar to what we were showing with those CAD polyline options. These objects are a little smarter though, and they give you some tools to move beyond that bubble diagram into some more automatic functionality, and I'll just kind of show you an example of it. Before we do that though, I wanted to look at the wizard. So this second button will take you into the Space Planning Assistant, and this will just walk you through to help you kind of brainstorm the basics of the house that you're going to build. So if we were to do this, you can think about how many floors you're going to have. We'll just do a single story here. A 2-car garage. How many bedrooms and bathrooms do you want? And do you want any of these other types of rooms? So this is just where you kind of start figuring out, oh, this space or this family has required. So you choose all sorts of those options. So I'm going to choose a few of these and then hit next. And now it's just letting me know that it's going to give me those room bubbles on my screen. So now the idea is that you can grab any of these rooms similar to what we were doing before, and you can drag those around and create your bubble diagram. So to save a little time, I've got a version that I have already put together. So you can see here is just an organization of some of those room boxes. There are a few controls in these. So let's look at, for example, you can do things like change the name of the bubble and its dimensions, control some of the display options and the fill style. In X13, we've added some better controls for positioning these. So when you do drag, you can snap, and there's some better responsiveness to the objects. There were some snapping options in X12, but we've just kind of finessed it and improved it to be a little more functional. So now that I have all of these bubbles laid out, the next step that I can take here is to convert these to walls. And that's this third button here. So if I just click on Build House, the program's going to take my bubbles and convert those into individual walls. I'll go to my working plan view so you can kind of see that the program has tried to automatically identify the exterior of the house. So it's using an exterior wall type around the perimeter of the house, and it's got my interior walls on the inside. It will also try to use, based on the room name, the appropriate type of doors. So it kind of gets you, it takes away a little bit of that drawing process. There are a few things that it does a little that maybe aren't perfectly, but it's a good jump start and a good way to get you going, and just to kind of show you what this one looks like. We've got kind of a cute little rancher that we were able to make pretty quickly just using that bubble diagram process. I've done just a little bit of cleanup on my house and added some windows and changed the roof line a little bit and just started to kind of get a feeling for this space. But it's a good segue to take the concept of your bubble diagram and your room layout into the actual room definitions in Chief Architect. Rooms are kind of the bread and butter of Chief. You'll find that in any project that you're doing, whether it's just simply a kitchen remodel or if you're doing a whole house or you just want to design a deck or something like that, you're going to need a room. Rooms really control everything about the construction of the space. It's because rooms have 4 walls or more, and it creates an enclosure with a floor and a ceiling that you're able to tell the program what you're actually looking for and what you want. So if you don't have a room in your design, you don't really have anything to work with structurally inside the program. And one of the things about rooms, just like anything else in the program, is you can open up the specification and you have a set of parameters. The very first thing you'll see when you open the room specification is this room type and a drop down. It looks like this is redundant, the room type and the room name, and sometimes it is. But if you hit the drop down button here, you'll see that the program has some pre-defined options for the different room types. So you can change these rooms to be whatever you'd like. The room name is simply the name that ends up displaying in your schedules, in your floor plan here. So this room label, that comes from this room name information. And you can tell the program to use the default name, which is essentially the equivalent of what you're seeing in the dropdown, or you can preserve this room type, so the parameters that exist for this type of a room. My living room is one big space that shares a dining area, so I'm just going to change my label to say dining living, and that will update my preview here. So that hasn't really done anything to my object at all or my model. One thing that you'll notice perhaps from the before and after of my home that I created using the room bubbles versus this version is I've changed some of my wall types. I have this dashed line here, and what I opted to do was go through and convert the spaces that I know I want to be open. So this is going to be kind of an open concept floor plan where the kitchen looks through to the living room. And I've used our room divider tool. So from my toolbar, you can see I don't have my wall tool here. I need to switch back to my architectural mode. From the wall tool, I have this room divider option. The room divider tool is the easiest and cleanest way to separate spaces, especially for an open concept type of a home. There are a few nuances, and I want to make sure to point those out. The first one being that because different room types can have different properties concerning floor platforms and whether or not there's a ceiling platform and the heights of the ceiling and floor, you may see that your thin room divider line gets thick, like a full wall thickness. The reason for that is that Chief needs to calculate more than just a material change or more than just a square footage change. I'll show you an example of that right now. So let's open up this elevation view. This is cutting through my house, and here is the front of the house where we had that entry area. And then this is my living room, and I believe this section is the kitchen. So I'm going to tile my view. I can just pull this tab off and dump it over here on the side. And this is my elevation. It's cutting through this section of the house, and it's facing towards the kitchen here. So let's say in this example, I want a difference in my living room and my kitchen. I want it to pop up and have a vaulted ceiling. So the easiest way to make that change in Chief is to open up the specification for this room area. And on the structure panel, you can see I have controls for the ceiling. Now watch what happens when I uncheck flat ceiling over this room. If you look to the preview on the right, the program has changed the preview. I'll turn that back on and off so you can see it. So the program is now telling this space that there's no ceiling platform, and instead it's going to use the roof over it. When I hit OK, let's look at our section view. And you can see how the program rebuilds to take this ceiling out, and it's actually extending an attic wall over the space. So that's kind of the key to the room divider. If you compare this space to this space, I have a double line here instead of the single line. So when you see the double dash line, it means that you have an invisible wall, and that's probably because you have a transitioning that has occurred between the platforms somewhere in your space. So the room platform for this ceiling is now different than the adjacent rooms. The way that Chief compensates for that is by drawing this attic wall above your invisible wall. So it needs to know that it's there. If you don't like to see these double lines, you can simply hide them. They don't have to be turned on at all. And you can hide anything that's selected by using this object layer properties at the bottom of your edit toolbar. And we'll just turn off the display of invisible walls. I know that there are some users that will come through and make custom invisible walls to help suit these cases, but if I want to show a division between these rooms for my final product, I don't really jump through those hoops. Instead, what I'll just do is create a new line type, and I'll just manually draw it in and customize it. I showed you from the list all of these different room types, and many of them are very similar, but they do behave differently in some cases. For example, because this room has the name deck and the room type is deck, the program's going to use these values on the deck and the deck support panels in order to automatically generate your deck framing and to create a different floor platform. If we look on the Structure tab and look at the floor structure, then you can see that in the planks area, this has changed because it knows it's a deck room. And you have different options to define a different structure for this room. Let's compare that to our living room again, just so you can kind of see the difference. So you can see, because this is a living room, it's not using the deck structure, so it's got a floor structure. And I'm using different values for this part of the floor. So that's 100% controlled by the room type. If I were to come through here and change my living room to a deck, notice that the preview changes, and notice that on the structure panel, again, my structure changed. So those are default attributes that are set up in your template plan. And you can control the different construction methods that are used for the different room types. So if you care about how thick those are, if you're going to be using floor trusses for some rooms, if you need to define your decking, if you want concrete floors, those sorts of things, those are all defaults you can set up in your room types. So you can make a room type that every single time you rename that room or you change the room type here, the program will automatically give you certain attributes about the ceiling and the floor platform and the different materials and moldings and those sorts of things that you're using. So the way that you can access those is through the default settings. So if I come into my defaults and down to floors and rooms, I have controls here. I like to think of this as a tiered hierarchy where you have kind of higher level and kind of master level stuff. So if your whole floor is going to behave a certain way, you want to change your floor defaults. But if you have certain rooms that have different attributes than other rooms, you change those on the room level. You can do that in the defaults here. So these are the different options that are in that list that I was showing you. In the entire list, you can look at all of the different options. So if you find that there are way too many options in here and you won't use most of these room types, go into your template and delete it, cull out the list and clean it up. If you find that there are rooms not represented on here that you would like to see, then you can add them and they'll show up in all of your projects after you've added those to your template. If you'd like to know more about which room type you'd want to copy, go to the Help menu and find the section Room Types and Functions. This gives a good summary of the different room types. Another detail that we pay a lot of attention to in our rooms and our room types are the area and whether that area is calculated in the actual living area or if it's unconditioned space and kind of how that relates to your entire design. I know that's important for not only pricing but for permitting and just representing to your clients how big their spaces are going to be. So you notice we show a dimension value for each room. What the program ends up doing is it looks at this interior space and it creates kind of an averaged length and width dimension. So those are approximations that you'll have associated with your room labels. When you have a funny shaped space like this hall, the program is happening to take the longest interior dimension and showing that as part of the dimension space. So those can be used as approximations. There are also a couple other options if you would like to show that information differently, and they're layer based. So if you click on any room layer and you come to your object layer properties, you can see what other layers are affiliated with the room label. And those include the interior area and the standard area and the interior dimension, which we're showing right now. So if I turn all of these layers on, then you can see that the program will show all of those calculations. If I come into my floor plan shell view here, you can generally find a living area at the bottom center of your screen. The program will automatically label any enclosed room and it will put a living area in. So this living area is calculated based on the different spaces that you have on your design. If you open any room, you have a living area set of options. So you can use the default, so that's carried in that room type defaults that we were looking at. And then you can also specifically include or exclude individual rooms from the calculation. So another thing about the living area label down here is it's on a per floor basis, and each individual floor will show a separate calculation based on the rooms in that space. There are a few controls for the living area under your plan defaults, and that's when you double click on the Select Items tool. Down on the bottom of your dialog is an option to choose where you're calculating that actual livable space. So those are some options where you can kind of tweak those values based on what your needs are. Just one quick tip for X12. Occasionally you'll get into a situation where maybe you've accidentally deleted the living area and you want that to come back and it's hard to make it come back. You can always come into the Tools menu under Checks and Plan Checks. You'll see the living area will turn back on automatically. That happens to be something that we've improved in X13 to make that more reliable where it shows and hides itself. Let's look at adding another level to this house, so it's a multi-story house, so that we can have maybe a garage and a few more bedrooms for this space. I'll just start by adding a new floor. So to do that, I'll just come to my floor tools and I'll just choose Build New Floor. And I know this is going to be totally backward, but I'm just going to make a new floor so that I have an outline of my exterior rooms. When I choose to create a new floor, it's going to give me the new floor's defaults, and we'll just leave these as is. It's going to be a lower ceiling height, and I think I'm okay with that for now. So you can see that the program has put me up onto floor 2 with our new floor, and I have an empty second floor plan. Now I know I said I was going backwards, and I'll show you what I have in mind here. I think I'll turn this house into a split level house where I have a garage underneath the main section, a raised entry, and then the main level that we've already designed above that. So first things first, I'm all upside down here. What I'll do is swap my floors. So again, in my floor tool, I'm just going to choose this exchange with floor above option, because I'm currently on my first floor. So if I just click on this button, the program will automatically swap those for me, as you see here. So let's make this area of the home kind of a basement that's subterranean, and then this area a garage. So the first thing I want to do is create more rooms so I can control how those platforms are functioning. I'll turn on my reference display, and this shows where my walls are laid out on my floor above. I'm just going to grab this exterior wall and drag it all the way down so that now I have an enclosed room space here. Because I'm talking about rooms and their automatic behavior, I want you to see how this kind of behaves. So let's change this view to Glass House. This is one of my favorite tools for understanding how the program is reacting to the input I give it, and just for visualizing what will happen next. So while I'm in this room definition on the side here, I'm going to change my room type to a garage. And I see in the preview that it changes my floor level here. So if I look on the structure panel, you can see that now it's turned this into a slab type of a room. If I edit this specification, so this again is one of those room defaults that you can modify to suit your region, so that however you're building your garages, you can set it up here. I know that I want the garage to be even lower than the basement, so I'll set my floor height here to -10. I always like to hit tab in any of my dialogues so I can see the update, and I'll hit OK. And you can see the change here where the program has created a slab room for my garage. Now let's look at lowering this entryway. I'm just going to go straight up to my second floor, and I'll choose this entryway, and I'm going to set its floor height as 60. So you'll see that I'm editing the absolute elevations. I know that the entire second floor level is at 109 inches above my 0 level. So I want this entryway to be lower than the rest of this floor level. So I'm going to cut it approximately in half, and I'll make the floor height 60 inches. And you can see again that it updates. You can see that the ceiling height adjusted and the floor platform just shifted down. I have to do the same thing on my front porch, so I'll go ahead and make the same edit. Make this 60. Actually, maybe I'll make it even lower, like 56, so that the porch is just a little bit lower than the front door. And you can see that it drops that down. Let's put terrain in here so that we have some reference. I've just copied and pasted some terrain and elevation data that I had from another plan into this plan so that we can kind of get a preview of how this will interact. It's looking pretty good, but another thing I notice is that I'm going to need some stairs going between these 3 levels. So let's do that next. I'll just come into my plan view. I'm on floor 2, and I'll grab my stair tool, and I click and drag up into the invisible wall for my hall. Chief Architect knows where the platform height is for this entry based on where I started dragging my stairs, and where I released my stairs was at the next platform height. So you can see if I take a floor overview, I have stairs coming from my entry up onto my second floor. Now I need stairs that go down to my basement. Chief by default wants to draw stairs going up from a lower floor to an upper platform. So to create those basement stairs, go down to your lower level. So this is our first floor, and let's add a new set of stairs. I'm going to turn my reference display on again so I can kind of see what I'm looking at. And I'll use my stair tool, and again I can click and snap to my reference display, and I'm just going to drag and make approximately the same length of stairs going up to my entry, and we'll just bump it into place here. So this obviously isn't right because I have a floor interfering with my stairwell. Well, this is once again another room definition issue. The stairs don't know anything about the platforms other than where they are for starting and stopping. They won't automatically change what the platform is doing. You have to tell Chief that you want the platform to change. So there's a couple ways that you can do this. The first way is you can select your stair that's causing the interference. And on the edit toolbar, we have an auto stairwell tool. If you click on that, you can see the program creates a hole that simply surrounds the staircase. That hole is generated on the floor above where the stairs were drawn. You can see it here. It's just adding railing walls to surround the stairwell. For some cases that might be exactly what you're looking for, but I'm going to approach it just a little bit differently, and instead I'm going to again use my room divider tool, and I'm just going to click and drag a new room division at the stair platform change. Then I'll select the new room that I've created, and I'll open up the specification, and we're going to change this room type to open below. And that just takes the platform out of this room in its entirety. Let's look at our different views so that you can visualize it a little bit more. If I kind of navigate around here, you can see the change in platform and the opening for the stairs. Let's also look at our section view, and you can see that now I have my split level with my stairs going down. From here, what I would probably do is just kind of finesse the rest of my layout. I have all of the levels essentially where I need, and now I just need to fill in these spaces until I achieve the new layout that I'll be working with. So here we've kind of ended up with our close to finished split level floor plan that has a variety of different room attributes. I'll just perform a few final tricks to show you how I might wrap up the architectural part of this design. So we can add foundation and maybe modify some of the subterranean walls, just like you would probably need to do for your final design. So I'll come back to my project plan, and we're on level 1 right now. So even though most of this is probably considered a basement type of a level, I did it all on floor 1, or we swapped it to floor 1, and that's because I knew that I would want some conditioned space on these walls, which is a little different than what I would have for my foundation. So if I'm doing a basement type of scenario, often I'll make the basement level actually on floor 1. So to create a foundation, what I'll simply do is come to my build new floor option, and we're going to build a foundation, and the program's going to give me some options here. In my area we have footings, and I can tell it what length I want my stem walls to be. I'll go ahead and leave this as is, just in the defaults, because I think I'm going to need a footing about that length underneath my garage. So if I hit OK, and let's look at what the program has generated for us. So it knows that I have a garage room based on what was in the primary floor when I generated the foundation. So it gives me some parameters here. It makes it automatically a 24-inch long stem wall. In the primary space, it uses that longer stem wall depth that we specified. And there's probably a couple things here that I could do differently. So because it is a basement type of a situation, I may want to change this floor to be a slab floor. And then I may also want to make the stem wall less, because I don't think we need so much depth. So I can come to the structure panel, and I have this stem wall length, and I'm just going to go ahead and change that to start with. I'll make this maybe even 0 so that the slab would be poured right on top of that footing. So that's taken care of for me. And then anything that's related to the actual floor platform, that's actually for the above level. So that is this room. There are a couple options here. I can go into my floor defaults, and I can edit the default floor platform. So here I can make this, instead of a framing layer underneath, maybe I'll turn this to a 4-inch slab. And I'll have to change the material as well. And let's just look and see what that did for us. So I'm just double checking a room, and you can see it does have my floor structure with the slab now. You could come through and change each of these individually. In X13 you can actually multi-select rooms, so I can group select. I'm in X12 right now, but I can multi-select in X13 and open the specification. And most of these fields are unlocked, so I'm able to modify all of them at once, which is kind of one of my favorite features in X13. But now we have a foundation level that is suitable to the house. So you can kind of see that underneath. And then the last little bit that I would want to kind of point out is that I have this framed wall and it's currently underneath the ground, so that's something I would want to address as well. And that one is also pretty simple. I'll actually just modify the walls. I can choose whichever exterior walls end up being underground. I'm going to open the specification for those, and I want to turn those to a pony wall. I want the upper part of the wall to be my siding, and then the lower part will be some sort of a foundation type of a wall. I do want it to have interior finish on it, so I could customize this if I'd like and make it different thicknesses depending on how I'm actually going to make that assembly work. So let's look at this and see how it goes. So now I have a foundation type of a wall below and a siding wall above. I think that essentially covers what I wanted to talk about. I'll provide these plans on our Chief Talk post, so you can download those and you can kind of reverse engineer what I've done. All right, so yeah, before we go into some question and answers, I just wanted to mention a couple other things that are related to space planning that I didn't really talk about in my prepared notes. And those simply are that when you are doing space planning, there's a lot more than just rooms involved. So I wanted to point out the fact that we do have catalogs for download that include all sorts of sizes and shapes of different objects that you might put in your house. That includes things from furnishings to fixtures and all that sort of stuff. Two catalogs in particular are our furniture space planning catalog, and this just happens to be a selection of objects like recliners and Murphy beds and sleeper sofas that are available in both open and closed position, so you can make sure you have clearances around those. And then another catalog that also is related to space planning is our accessible design catalog. It's got some of the CAD block spacing and clearances that you'd want to use if you're doing any sort of universal design, aging in place or accessible type of design. So yeah, those are available for download. And with that, let's take a few questions. Carrie, if you want to call on somebody, raise your hands. Carrie will call on you and you can unmute your mic.
Thanks, Adrian. We have a question from Laura. Hi, Laura. Go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, hi. Thank you for that. That was awesome. I just learned a bunch of new things.
Yay!
I had a couple of questions for you. Number one, you were working on the stairs, and I'm constantly having an issue with the stairs that when I try to do like a U-shaped stair, the second part of it disconnects from that, from the landing.
Okay.
Do it very easily there.
Okay. So maybe we can look at some ways that stairs actually work to snap together and to hit a landing. This is the plan that I did the two stairs on. It's essentially a U-shaped stairs, stair with a landing in between the two floors.
Yeah, that's the kind of situation I have with a split level.
So when we have the split level room, I'm on my lower floor here, and so I have one stair, and it needs to start in the middle of a room definition at the bottom. And then when you drag it, you bring it up so it overlaps whatever the wall is for that next platform height. And so that should connect automatically, and that's where I really rely on the glass house view. Let me go ahead and get back into that mode.
Yeah, I can always get the first part set up in the landing, but I can never get the second set of stairs. It seems to not connect to the landing.
Okay, this is where I'll kind of keep this as a reference open on the side so I can see if it's actually working the way I want it to. So you have your first level, and then the second floor, you'll need to make sure that you have a good room definition on your second floor. and then your stair needs to overlap where that wall starts. And then when you drag it up to the next step in your platform, the stair needs to actually hit that platform as well. And that's kind of the key. If I have my stair dragged back a little too far, it's not automatically snapping up to that level. So that may be what you're seeing. Also, even though you think sometimes your stairs should fit, there's just the math just doesn't work out between the platforms. So that's where you'll want to double click on the stair, and you can look in the specification, and the program's going to tell you whether or not the stair actually is able to reach the 2 floors automatically. So those are kind of the 2 things that I'll often hit if my stairs aren't reaching the way I expect them to. Either I don't have it overlapping so that the program can see that it needs to hit the different platforms on the different floors, or it's just too short and the math doesn't work out that it can reach the rest of the way.
When the first overlap, you said, were you talking about overlapping the landing? Is that where you? Okay.
Well, if in this case, the landing is an actual floor. If you are using the landing object, you can do that too. In the toolbar here, I can draw a rectangular landing. And in that case, you don't want it to actually overlap. What you want is for the landing and the stair to snap edge to edge to each other. It's going to look funny in my example because I have a floor platform there, so they're conflicting with each other. But yeah, if you're using a landing object, they need to snap to each other.
Okay. One quick thing, I just noticed when you did that floor switch, the exchange floors.
Yeah.
That was a big aha moment. I just want to make sure I can use it for this, because what happened was I was working on this plan, and it was the house was on stilts, and I didn't realize. So I put the first floor that was really the second floor, and then was trying to just kind of create a foundation, and it's been there because I couldn't get the terrain to line up. So that is a case where I could use that, where I could exchange floors, or like it has a third floor too. So I don't know if that would work.
It's got a lower floor also, is that what you said?
It's got an upper floor. There's 3 floors altogether. And I wanted the bottom one, I was actually making the basement, but it's really above ground. So can I switch floors to make it, like, in other words, I want to lift everything up to make it.
Maybe instead of the switch floors tool, you'll be looking for the insert new floor tool. So if you've got your foundation built with all of the piers or whatever the stilts that you have for the foundation, between that level and the level that needs to go up higher, you can use the insert new floor tool, and that will just slide a new layer in there. If you already have
I was actually trying to insert a floor below the first floor, the only kind of floor that lets me do that as a foundation.
Yeah, and that's the case that I used too. So that's where I built a new floor first. I can't insert anything below the only floor. So that's, if you built a new floor, then you can just swap them like I did. That would be a good way to do that. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Is there a way to just select everything in the whole plan and move it up, like, the transform replicate, or?
There is, yeah, there is. If you wanted to make a new blank floor above your active one, we have, you would do the build new floor tool so that you have a space above somewhere, even if it's empty. And then under the edit menu, if you choose edit area, there's this edit area for just a single level, actually is probably what you would want. And it will you just draw a marquee around the entire thing, and you can choose copy and just paste it in place on the floor above.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for calling.
Adrian, we have Neyman here with a question. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, Adrian. I have a quick question on the, like when we have 2 levels and we want to play around different options, is there like a trick, or is there a better way to do it? Because once we have 2 different floors, say first and second, to me, it becomes a little bit tedious, and I'm wondering if there's a better way to do it. Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, you're looking at maybe on one or both floors, you want to show different layout options of where the actual rooms and walls exist. Is that kind of what you're describing?
Yes.
There's a few ways you could do it. If you wanted to do that with the space planning tool, like before you get the final walls inserted into the projects and stuff, you can always turn your layout boxes on after the original construction. So let's say on my main floor here, I want to come back through and kind of revisit those space planning boxes. I can toggle those back on and access them again, so I can move them around. That won't affect the walls that have been created. So once the walls are created, they're kind of there. So if you wanted to show multiple floor levels, it gets a little trickier. Chief doesn't necessarily like rooms that are overlapping each other in the same space. It comes down to all of that platform stuff. When they start fighting with each other, then it just doesn't know how to digest it. So that's where I would probably recommend using the reference display with the 3D reference display, and that's where you can take like option 1 and option 2 of your second floor plan and turn them on as a reference display for over the top of the second floor, so you can show it superimposed essentially. I believe that Scott did a demo on our remodeling webinar that covers how to do that, and then that's a good way to show options. So you essentially create multiple projects with each of the options, so they're different plan files, and then you can just layer them together using that 3D reference display option. I think that's
Got it. Thank you so much. I appreciate this.
Yeah, no problem.
Adrian, we have a question from Charles. Hey, Charles, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, Adrian. I have a question going back to the room planning boxes that built into Chief. In X13, is there a way to break the boxes to make them L-shaped, U-shaped, not all rectilinear?
Sure. I don't think so. Let me look really quickly. So I have X13 open right now, and let's just put one on the screen and see what happens. So if I drop a room box here, I can select it, and I'm looking down at my edit tools down on the bottom, and I do not see the break line tool. So no, you don't have an option for that in X13. I believe you can overlap room boxes in X12 and X13, and if you were to build these, let's just try it really quick, then the program kind of does some of that breaking for you. So I don't know if that's helpful or not, but you may just try overlapping your room boxes, and then when you do the build, it should try to come up.
That's what I've been doing all these years, and sometimes it's tricky because it doesn't always every time you build it, it might, which way it works.
Yeah.
But okay, well, maybe X14 on that.
Yeah,
and
I'll bring that up. Yeah. Go ahead.
The other one is I use that space planning like you were just demonstrating. I reconfigure the plans, and then I rebuild the house over and over again. All the walls erase and rebuild, but for some reason the stairs stack on top of it. They don't delete when you rebuild. Is there a trick to getting them to delete? Okay, well,
you know, I just kind of honestly assumed that it wouldn't work for the walls either. So I think you've got me there.
Okay. Yeah, if I move the space planning boxes and I rebuild the house in the space planning toolbar there, it does remove the walls, and it changes everything out. But it's just, for some reason, doesn't like the stairs. And that was going to be my next question is, in putting stairs in your plan with the stair tool, if you look up there in your toolbar, stairs versus stairwells, do they have to be used together, or can they be used separately? I mean, and what if you want a U-shaped stairs? They generally tend to just be straight line stairs. Any tricks to that?
Yeah, so we added, I think it was in X11 or X12, in the toolbar here, we added these additional, they're just pre-configured stairs. There's nothing necessarily too magical about these tool buttons. It's just that they're just stair pieces that are already been put together to make a unit. And I believe you can get in there and edit those
No,
separately.
I'm familiar with them. I'm talking about the stair space planning box. If you go back into your space planning toolbar,
I'm sorry.
there's
Okay.
a tool, there's a box called stairs, and there's also a box called stairwells. And so that stairs is a straight line stair, and if you make it wider, it's just a big wide straight line stairs.
Right.
No way to make that. Well, the trick around that is I start stacking stairs right next to each other and then just kind of editing them later, but didn't know if there was a trick to making it a U shape from that box.
No, there's not, I don't think. I think that that just represents a single run. So yeah, just like what you've described, yes, you would just make a copy of it and rotate it, in order to create a U-shaped stair and that sort of thing. The stairwell just simply makes a room that would be an open below room with the railing wall so that you would have the opening over the top of the stair. That's, yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot for your help.
Yep.
Hey, Adrian, we have a question from Michelle. Hey, Michelle, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, thanks so much for this.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a two-part question. I answered part of it while I was waiting my turn. When it comes to the space planning tools, we made all the boxes. I didn't know how to then generate the house. I did figure that in the drop down, but I guess my initial question is my toolbar doesn't look like yours does. Like I don't have terrain and I don't have it where I can click on it and it runs along the top. So can you tell me how to turn that on?
Are you using Chief Architect Interiors?
Yep, 12X, the X12.
Okay. Yeah, so in Chief Architect Interiors, we didn't provide those configurations out of the box.
Okay.
I think though, you should be able to create your own or add them to the toolbar if you just want them to live there. I believe Interiors has the customized toolbar options, and that's when you right click kind of on these dots next to your toolbar, you should be able to come down to customize toolbars, and that will bring up this dialog that lets you take those space planning boxes and you can just drop them up onto your default toolbar and they'll stick there so that they'll always be there for you.
Awesome. Easy peasy, thanks.
Yep.
Adrian, we have one last question. It comes from Rick Thirlby. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, I got a couple questions. The first one, it's just something that has always kind of bugged me, that when you create your rooms and you label them and they put the label along with the dimensions in there, it doesn't go in the middle of the room. Why is it? It drives me nuts. I always have to move them.
I think there's kind of two factors at play here. For whatever reason, for that room label, the center node essentially is not aligned exactly on that center point. The other factor that you'll come into is if you have a room that is non-square, the program has a really tough time figuring out what center actually is there. So it just kind of arbitrarily finds an X and a Y and finds the kind of the convergence of the two, and that's where it plops the room label. So yeah, unfortunately we don't have necessarily a lot of user defined controls to set those out of the box, but you can of course select these objects and center them. We can put in a request to make that a little more flexible though, if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, if it could just have the room title itself centered, that would be fine. But I mean, I'm constantly going in and moving everything up.
But yeah, I really appreciate that feedback. We'll share that.
Okay. And when is 13 going to be released?
We're looking at the first half of next year. So we're still kind of plugging away, trying to get the functionality developed. And hopefully we'll go into beta testing here, in the next couple of months or something. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was our last question. Were there any announcements you wanted to make?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks everybody for joining us. I hope that you were able to take something away with you. And I just wanted to point out a couple of the resources that we do have available. So if you want to keep learning about Chief Architect and how the program works, there's a lot of different ways you can do that. So we're continuing to do these free live webinars on Thursday. So even into next year, if you want to go ahead and register, you can get access to those and join us and ask your questions. And then we also offer some virtual training options. So these are classroom type options. So in January, we're going to be doing actual training where you can join other Chief Architect users and a trainer in a webinar like this in a classroom type of a setting and learn more about the program. And then we have all sorts of pre-recorded videos and FAQs that will really help guide you on specific questions. And I really like to suggest everyone to at least visit and periodically check in on Chief Talk, especially if you're doing something that's very specific and you're having a hard time with this out of the box type of a problem. Chief Talk has a huge resource of really creative and knowledgeable users. Can't really say enough good things about them, and they're really enthusiastic and helpful. So I'd kind of recommend all of those things. But other than that, I hope you'll join us next time and have a happy and healthy new year.